Unsyndicated presents What the Puck with Sean Baligian.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of The Proven Path. Can't thank our friends from the Michigan High School Hockey Coaches Association enough for making this possible, helping us get ready for another fantastic season of hockey at the MHSAA level. My name is Sean Baligian. Of course, my partner, Mike Iavasile, here as well. Kindly joining us, a guy that has been involved in many capacities at the high school level for many years now. Currently, the head coach of the Brighton Bulldogs out of the KLAA. Let's welcome him in, Coach Kurt Kivisto. Kurt, always a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks for having me. Fun to chat hockey with you guys anytime.
No, you know, Kurt, it's interesting. I have told anybody that will listen that this is a fantastic product. You could see it in your own backyard. And I think in recent years, we've seen guys move on. We've seen guys go to the NA, to go to the NAL, the USHL, move on to major colleges. The Proven Path is a line that we're using, and you are one of those guys. You're seeing the Proven Path with your own two eyes within your own program.
Yeah, it's something we've seen. We saw with guys this past year, with guys moving on to junior hockey from our team this past year, not just from us, but from around the state. When I was playing, we didn't know too much about it. Social media wasn't around. We just played to play. And just seeing the success that kids are having around the state from all these different programs moving on to junior hockey, college hockey, professional hockey, it's been really neat to see.
Well, Coach, let's get right to you and your pathway. I mean, your pathway, it took you right through Brighton High School as a player, and you ended up there as a coach, too. So tell us about your choice as a player to play at Brighton High School, and then also as a coach to come back and coach that high school.
Yeah, probably a pretty untraditional path. I played house hockey growing up. I played 1 year of travel when I was in about fourth grade. Quit hockey for a couple years and had a season pass at Mount Brighton, did some skiing, and came out of retirement in about, seventh grade maybe, and played a couple more years of house hockey and made the varsity team at Brighton my sophomore year. I played 3 years at Brighton, sophomore, junior, senior year. Coming out of that year, I was drafted into the North American League by Cleveland, went down there, played 2 years, was recruited to Michigan State, played 4 years at Michigan State, finished up a master's degree there, had 1 year off, and then jumped in with Coach Paul to start coaching. So 10 years as an assistant under him, learned a ton from him, and then going into year 5 as the head coach at Brighton. So it's been a fun ride. I really enjoyed high school hockey.
Kurt skipped over one very important fact, and out of respect to Mr. Crespi being the Michigan Tech guy, I did not don my Spartan cap tonight, but I'm going to show my bias here. 2007 national champions. Who can forget it? It's unbelievable. You think it's 17 years ago now, but Kurt, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your experiences there. A young member of the team, but what an incredible ride that was.
Yeah, it was an incredible group of guys that year. We got together a year or two ago for the 15-year reunion. I think just about everybody's done playing now. Just a really special group of guys. The memories from that season were incredible. The run we went on, and just that whole ride, the whole experience was super, super neat and unforgettable. And not just the hockey, the relationships, getting back together with the guys every now and then. And just the memories that came from that whole year, getting back to East Lansing, the parade, that kind of stuff, going to the White House, just the whole summer associated with that was really neat. And it's fun to get back together up at Munn with the guys now, kind of rehash some of those memories and watch that current group play.
I mean, what a great story, Kurt. What the path that you just took is one that we haven't heard, from house hockey to varsity hockey to NCAA and the places that it took you. So all those people out there listening, if your kid's playing house hockey, don't say you can't do it or there's no pathway for you. There's a pathway for everybody. And that pathway through Brighton, as we were saying, some guys committing this year. Kurt, you always seem to have that guy or those guys on your team coming through Brighton. And I know that KV association is pretty big there, but what is the story? How do you get these guys in here? Every year you've got someone that seems to be on our watch list for player of the year, right? You get more than you don't get. Is it the program itself? Is it the committee, or is it your sales pitch? How are you getting these guys in there?
Well, I think it's all of that. It's one, we have a lot of really good hockey players in our school, and there's certainly plenty of kids that don't play for us that move on to be extremely successful, but there's a lot of kids that do choose to come play for us. And I think it helps us with the, a couple of things. One, it's the community support, the students coming to the games, that aspect of it, and what the kids are able to do and experience playing in front of their classmates, their community, and their parents in that sense. And then secondly, the kids know they can be successful through our program. We've had about 20 guys come through, move on to play Division I college hockey. And we had a bunch of guys playing professionally this past year, Jake, who's coming on a bit, being one of those guys. And kids see that we're a viable option for them, and they don't have to run all over the country, spend all kinds of money. They can come into our program, and we can support that with data, with kids that have come through, moved on recently to junior hockey, to college hockey, and professionally. And we certainly use that to try to entice kids to come and play for us.
Kurt, I think that's one of the best things. And before we bring Jake Crespi in momentarily, you just touched on it. The data that is being used now, it's one thing to say, well, look at this kid, look at that kid. But when you can put out a spreadsheet, whether it come from the Coaches Association or College Hockey Inc., when you can put out a spreadsheet and say, I don't have to say anything. Here you go. Take a look at this. I always say the proof is in the pudding, and I love the tag, the proven path, because I think the path was there for many, many years. But what we've seen in the past, really decade, your school all over the state, is you're seeing guys move on now and continue their hockey career. And like your case, get an education at the same time.
Yeah, and that's important. And just for our program, we don't have to necessarily share what everybody else is doing. Like we can sit down with kids and families in our school and say, hey, these are the guys that have done it in recent years, and here's their path. Here's where they came from. Here's what they did. We've had one kid, Sean Baligian, was a 2-time All-American that played 2 years on our JV program before even making our varsity team. Another one, Logan Neaton, he's an NHL draft pick. He played 2 years on our JV team before jumping to the varsity. So the path is widely different. Kids can come into our program, they can grow, they can be successful. They don't have to be in a hurry to be somewhere else, and they can come out as, after their senior year, ready to make that jump if that's what they want to do.
Kurt Kivisto, the head coach at Brighton, kindly joining us. As we mentioned, we have another guy, one of two guys on this show right now that literally just got off the links.
Yeah.
As our buddy Jonathan Kidd says hello. One of us in this room just got off the links, as a matter of fact, and one of us out there just got off the links as well. I'll let you guess who it is. We're very glad to be joined by him. Boy, it doesn't seem that long ago that we were watching him play. A fun player to watch. Quite frankly, I say it all the time, a fun hockey community to watch. Let's welcome him in. Jake Crespi, kindly joining us here on Wut The Puck, brought to you by our friends at the Michigan High School Coaches Association. And Jake, really, really appreciate you taking the time and joining us tonight. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on. Sorry about being a little late, but
it's golf. Come on, it's August 1st. But you guys are all at the course. I'm just glad you guys could make it. Hey, Jake, let's start with your experience at Brighton. As I mentioned, and I say this to Coach Kivisto all the time, every time you go out there, it's a special community. KV's a special place. How would you describe your experience growing up and eventually becoming a Brighton Bulldog?
Yeah. I mean, coming in, my story is a little bit different. I did the AAA route for a couple of years, and all credit to Kurt and Paul. I was ready to kind of take a step back from hockey. I wasn't really getting out of it what I'd hoped for. And the first 3 years kept having Kirk call my phone and no, not coming. But that junior year just decided, all right, we took a step back, not getting what I want. Let's have some fun, enjoy the game that I grew up loving. And as soon as I got there, it was just, a completely different experience in hockey that I've ever had. The community surrounding it was, next to the best in the state with any other high school, and something you didn't get in AAA. So having the community behind it and just the camaraderie of coming into the locker room, practicing every day, and then you go into the halls and you see your teammates, you go to class with your teammates. And I just really appreciated that side of kind of getting close and building that kind of, camaraderie with everybody else and fitting in with the community a little bit more.
We're 48 hours away from the MDHL tryouts this Saturday. So I got questions for both of you. Jake, you played in the MDHL. And one thing I noticed that comes out of that is just you build great relationships, not only with your teammates, but with guys that play in other programs that are in that league. Tell us a little bit about your experience in the MDHL. What did you like about it?
Yeah, it was great. You're kind of put in a situation where you maybe know one or two other guys in there, and you get to know other players from around the state, other coaches from around the state that are leading really good programs. It's competitive hockey at the highest level at that stage in life. It's right up there. You go to AAA tournaments with MDHL or even with Team Michigan, and you're competing with AAA teams. So it's the best in the state at our level. And it was awesome to get in there, compete with those guys, get to know them. And it adds an extra element of bragging rights when you get to play them during the season. And if you beat these guys, you can kind of give it to them a little bit. But no, it was really fun. And always a great experience.
That's great. Coach Kivisto, tell us a little bit about the MDHL, why you think it's so important for players that are out there to be out there Saturday for these tryouts and to give their shot at the MDHL. And after, give us a little insight into what Team Black's draft strategy is going to be this year.
Well, I think for one, being a supplement to the high school season, it's one of the knocks I hear when I sit down with people. Hey, your season's 30 games long, and when we lay it out with what we do in the fall, the top kids like Jake are going to be playing 25 to 30 games before our season starts. So just from that sense, when people are looking for a game count and getting that extra reps, extra competition in. We're probably pushing 25 to 30 games prior to our season starting for those top kids, which when you add that to our regular season schedule, kids are playing 60 to 65 games from, mid-August to March. And then you add the Team Michigan stuff on top of that. So I think it's an important part of the whole package for a kid playing high school hockey is to do that stuff in the fall. Cause it supplements what we do. When we're a little bit more limited prior to the regular season starting. And then, in terms of the Team Black draft strategy, I don't know what it is. The Seb Iavasile kid's not there anymore, so I can't have him for a fourth year. So starting from scratch this year.
This is, I guess, the commentary part of it. I encourage everybody to get out there if you get an opportunity to watch some of this. It's great hockey. Some of us are dying for hockey to start again. I know there are people out there that saying, didn't it just end? No, it ended a long time ago, and I need my hockey. So it's always fun to go out there. I hope we get to the point where we could get everybody, the best of the best, on the same ice at the same 100%. Time. I think it would be in the best interest of everybody. There's nothing like showcasing the talent in this state. And that's part of the reason why we're doing it. So the sooner we can get to something like that, I would be very happy. Jake, it's interesting because I've talked to so many guys that have a story like yours, and including, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a player at Brighton just a couple of years ago that told me point blank, he and his father told me the exact same thing. Man, if I knew then what I know now, I would have been a Bulldog for as long as Coach Kivisto would have me. You're a guy that experienced that. What would you say to a young player who's maybe watching this right now in that same position that you were in, okay, I could go here, I could go there, what would you say to that young player in regards to telling him maybe, just maybe, he should think about taking this route?
Yeah, I mean, I would say think about all the time you spend on the weekends and during the week traveling to and from practice and games, and implement that to ice time. And that amount of time that you're spending traveling could be put on the ice, developing your skills. There's way more practice at the high school level. And like Kurt said, yeah, it is a shorter amount of games, but that doesn't mean less ice time. You're on there. Every skate's a skill skate, right? Like passing's a skill. Thinking the game's a skill. Even systematically, you treat everything as a skill drill. So I would say that time you're spending traveling and playing all these extra games, you could be really developing your skill at a pretty intimate level with high level coaches who know what they're talking about. And yeah, it's not a step back by any means. It's putting into perspective that you have the chance to grow your game and be on the ice just as much, if not more.
You know, talking about the pathway, Kurt, I'm going to jump over to you for a second and talk a little bit about the KV Hockey Association and how strong it is and how important it is, not only to Brighton, but to Howell, to Heartland, to Catholic Central, all the schools around there. If you go back 2 years, that 06 Renegade team that was in there, I think, had 10 representatives at the Final Four at USA Arena. How important is that KV Association to you, and how involved do you get in it to help draw some players out when they're a little bit younger?
Yeah, it's unique now is, when we see the youth teams practice after us and we get off the ice and you give them fist bumps and you ask, where do you go to school? There's literally kids from Jackson and Chelsea and Brighton and South Lyon and Heartland. Like, kids are literally from everywhere playing on these teams. So it's not exclusively Brighton kids or even Livingston County kids. I think the quality of the teams in the association draw in good players from, almost an hour radius to the rink here. And then in terms of reaching out to some of those kids, that kind of in a unique spot now with having 2 kids in the association playing myself. I'm at the rink more than I was when I was just coaching. So it's, it's neat to see those kids that my son plays against and plays with and goes to school with that maybe are on a different team, and seeing those kids in the rink. I think it helps, the program here being in touch with those kids at earlier ages. So I'm not blind calling guys like Jake Crespi when he's a sophomore in high school, trying to get to know him and beg him to come play. It's establishing some of those relationships when the kids are early, because you see them at the rink, because I'm there with my son, I'm there with my daughter 3 days a week watching them skate as well. So I think that all helps too.
Jake, can you talk about your path once you left Brighton? Because I think one of the coolest things, I've been fortunate, I did broadcast for the NTDP for a couple of years and got a chance to see, some fantastic hockey players in the USHL. And one of the things that always put a smile on my face is when I saw a guy that I had watched a year or two earlier out there at that level, because it was proving the point over and over that people like me and Mike and Coach Kivisto have been saying, guys can move on. You're a guy, you moved on pretty quickly. Can you talk about your transition from Brighton to the USHL?
Yeah, it happened really quick and kind of took me by surprise too. Obviously was fortunate to have a good senior season surrounded by some good players, and was fortunate to be drafted by Tri-City. And, going in there, they were pretty excited about it. I had expectations, they had expectations, and, it's a slow start because that is a big step. I mean, the USHL is, I would say, the premier junior league across North America. So it was a big step, and it definitely took me time to adjust, but I would say it taught me to add dimensions to my game that I didn't quite have at Brighton, right? Like, I didn't step in, I wasn't able to go out there and produce points right away. That was a learning phase, and I was put in depth lines that really taught me how defense leads to offense more than anything. So, it added dimensions to my game that I would say just helped me improve and helped me at the college level too, because, every step you take, you're going to be lower on the totem pole unless you're one of these high-end guys coming out of wherever you're coming from. It was a big step. I mean, I'm very fortunate for what I got. The USHL, it's, like I said, it's premier. So I was very fortunate, and it just taught me how to play my end from my D zone out, and how you can create offense from just playing good defense from your end and creating opportunities that way.
Yeah, and Sean, just to jump in on that, we kind of overlooked the fact that Jake actually committed to a D1 school about Christmas time of his senior year with us. So he had a commitment with us prior to being drafted with the USHL team and making that jump. So it was pretty impressive what he did within our program in those 2 years.
Well, had 97 points in 55 games. He said he had a decent senior year, 59 points. Is that any good? So, Jake, if you make that jump to the USHL, this is something I'm asking all the players, is you talked about that adjustment and added dimensions to your game. What was the biggest adjustment you think you had to make jumping to juniors, and what would your advice be to those seniors this year that are going to be moving on to juniors here in August?
Yeah, I would say the adjustment is like, as a, if you're a top player at the high school level, you're playing in your state only for the most part, unless you're in that MDHL Team Michigan where you're playing top players from other states. You don't really see what else is out there. You get thrown in the mix and you're another fish in a really big pond of very talented hockey players, and it only gets better the higher level you get. So I would say just learning to do what others can't or what others won't do, I would say, for the most part, right? Like, you go from a first line guy point producing to fourth line in and out of the lineup your first year junior. That shouldn't be looked at as, oh, I'm a failure, or I'm letting people down. It should be looked at as, okay, I need to grow. They want to see how I do in this role, because once they can trust me with breaking pucks out cleanly, blocking shots, responsible defensively in every situation, PKing. Once you get that trust, that's when you can step in and really use your skills and abilities that you've used your whole life growing up. So, for guys just taking that step, I would say just commit yourself to doing the things other people won't do. Watch what players won't do. What do the coaches want you to do? And just buy into their system. Play exactly how they want you to play. Be that guy that, it makes it hard for them to take you out, because if they take you out, they'll be missing it.
And I'll add to that. Jake was Mr. Hockey as a forward. I was a forward my whole life. I switched to defense my senior year in college, and Jake did the same thing. And he's playing defense at the professional ranks now. So, basically doing whatever it takes to get in the lineup and just be part of the team and be productive. And Jake's a defenseman now. It's it's kind of come full circle for him in that sense. And we talked as he was making that transition to senior at Michigan Tech about that. And it's just very interesting to see that career path and, his ability to do that and change himself from a Mr. Hockey forward and primarily playing, center and wing with us to being a professional defenseman now. And he's not the only guy that's done that. Look at like a Nick Blankenberg is the same thing. He changed positions in college and was extremely successful with that. And, just doing whatever it takes to get in the lineup and help your team.
Want to talk about one of my favorite places in the state, the Houghton Hancock area. I've said it for years. I have no problem saying it. I would move up there. The only problem is I wouldn't have a family because none of them would follow me. But when we get old enough, we're going to go up there, watch hockey, and smoke some meat. But speaking of Houghton, Coach Kivisto, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Houghton's finest, Jimmy Young, wanted me to ask you about the Coca-Cola player of game. So let's get
I don't even know about this story, what's true anymore or not, but apparently my senior year, he said I was the Coca-Cola player of the game, and I got a Coca-Cola the next year. I don't know if it was from him or if it was from my uncle or who it's from, but it was still in my bedroom at my mom and dad's about a decade and a half later. So funny
That's
story.
awesome.
I don't even know what's true or not about it, but there was a 2 liter of Coke in my bedroom that allegedly was from, I thought was from him. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
Another one of Houghton's finest said, Jake is a great young man. I worked hockey schools with him up here in the Copper country. Future coach if he wants to be. And that's high compliments from Coach Markham, of course, the former head coach at Houghton. Jake, tell us about your decision. I make the joke with Kurt all the time. It is amazing how many guys in the Heartland, Brighton, Howell area. It seems like you all have cousins up there. It's amazing. Everybody's related to each other in one way, shape, or form. But how did you decide on Michigan Tech?
Yeah, so I mean, it was like Kurt said, I had committed to Lake State probably halfway through my senior season, around Christmas time, New Year's time, and I felt I had rushed that decision a little bit. I wanted to see, kind of going into juniors, just see what else could be out there, and not shutting the door on anything, but just kind of see. And going into my first year juniors, I took visits to Northern Michigan and Michigan Tech, and after that, it was like, all right, I guess I don't really need to see more. These are two places that I could see myself fitting in, not just as a player, but as a person. It kind of fit everything that we got at Brighton. Tight-knit community. They love hockey. And you can just be a part of something special over there. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think I just fell in love with, like you guys fell in love with Houghton. I mean, it's such a cool town, and we know people there. I don't have any cousins, but I love the area so much, and I was fortunate to get out there in the summer. If I had visited in the winter, it might have been a little bit different, but I got out there in the summer when it was nice and pretty. And yeah, I mean, as soon as I stepped foot in there, I fell in love, and facilities were beautiful. And I just heard nothing but great things about the community surrounding the hockey team and the history of the program. So.
Well, sticking with the UP, everyone talks about how special their trips are up there, the bus rides, the camaraderie. And I know there's a little bit more of a special meaning to you, Kurt, when you get up there into the UP with these trips. And you shared some of the stories with us when we were up there. And also, every time you go up there, when you guys come back, they seem to go on that run. We always say, wait till Brighton gets to the UP and gets back. But talk a little bit about the special meaning between the UP trips and what it means to you and the team.
Yeah, it's something we started doing probably in around 2002, maybe. One of the parents of kids on our team set up kind of the first trip. I think they tried to do it a little bit before that, and it took some time to work out the logistics and the scheduling. And I think probably January of 2002 was probably the first year we did it. That was my junior year as a player, so I did it twice as a player, and we've basically been going up every year since, other than the 1 year that was canceled due to COVID. But it's just a tremendous trip. We have a lot of kids on our team that have relatives up there, so they're playing against relatives on Houghton, Hancock, and Calumet, depending on who we play that year. The hockey's tremendous up there. There's competitive games every single year. The history, the tradition is extremely neat up there, playing in all three of those rinks. It's different than we see down here on a day-to-day basis. So it's super neat for us to get up there. And then on top of that, just the amount of time that our kids and our families are able to spend together on the bus ride up there, some of the stuff that we do, staying in the hotel together, pregame skates, skating at Michigan Tech, just all of that kind of stuff, basically together from Thursday morning until Sunday night. And I think there's a closeness that gets formed there that maybe is not there early in the year. And it does seem like every year it certainly helps our program take a step forward going up there at that time of the year.
Kurt Kivisto, Jake Crespi, Brighton edition of The Proven Path here. So glad you can join us. Thanks to our friends from the Michigan High School Hockey Coaches Association. I'm going to throw this at both of you because you both made reference to him. Paul Muggath, what can you say that hasn't been said about him? It's so cool, Kurt, when we go out to a game, it's almost like Mike and I were honored to go kiss the hand of the Don. You know, he's always at the games. He's still there. Brighton Bulldog for life. But Coach Kivisto, we'll start with you. What can you say about Coach Muggath?
Just can't say enough about him. He's just an incredible human, great friend, and he's done an incredible amount for the hockey community in Brighton. And I got to know him as a player, was fortunate to be around the program for 4 years as a player. He cut me my freshman year. I wasn't good enough. And I was a team manager, played 3 more years with them. And he helped me through the junior ranks, followed me through college, supported me where I was. And when I was done as a player, he took me on as a coach, and I was super fortunate that he did that. And kind of gave me a lot of leeway to bring in some stuff that was probably a little bit newer than he had been doing in that sense. And he had a tremendous amount of trust and faith in some of the things that I had to bring in as a young coach. And I just think he's a tremendous role model to myself and the players. And in the fall, when we're not able to coach, we bring him back still. And he's already committed for this fall that he'll get behind the bench when we're not able to prior to our season starting. So he's still able to have an impact on Brighton hockey and our players. He checks in, he knows what's going on. And to this day, when stuff comes up, and I'll still bounce stuff off him and get his advice on how to handle situations and personnel decisions and conversations and some of that kind of stuff. He's a great resource, and he's a great friend.
Jake?
Yeah, I mean, me and Paul's relationship at first definitely changed towards the end. At first, I was a little spotty my junior year. He had a tough time getting a hold of me. He had a tough time getting a hold of me at first. But I mean, I always looked at him as, he's that supportive grandfather, not to call him old, but he's that supportive grandfather with nothing but positive things to say, reassurance, and kind of doing his best to build you up as a human being, and can easily separate the hockey side from the life side. And I think what he impacted me the most with was the life side of everything, and just teaching life lessons through hockey. So, he had a really positive impact on me, and we had a pretty close relationship towards the end of it. And yeah, I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, we all loved him. He was a funny guy. We'd get on him about some of his older antics, but he was the man, and we love that guy. So
that's great. Getting back to our pathway, Jake, your pathway starting in AAA to Brighton through the USHL through NCAA landed you in a pretty cool spot this year. Playing overseas is something that we've heard from a lot of guys. Tell everyone where you're playing right now and what that experience is like.
Yeah, so right now I'm in Budapest, Hungary. Pretty unlikely hockey destination. No one would really anticipate that as somewhere you'd want to go play, or much less play hockey. But I think it's kind of the epitome of how my hockey careers kind of fell. I've always kind of done things my own way, and yeah, I couldn't be more fortunate to be out there. It's been one of the coolest experiences in hockey I've had, and you get to play pro hockey while traveling the world. I didn't have a lot of opportunity outside the ECHL coming out of college, and I kind of felt the best step for me was play out my career in Europe, see the world while I'm young, and just enjoy playing the game I love, because it's pretty exciting over there. The fans are great. The community is nothing like Brighton. It's probably even smaller than Brighton, which is weird because it's a much bigger city. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about playing overseas in Europe my first year, and I'm excited to go back for my second.
You know what's interesting? I've heard nothing but good things about Budapest. I've heard some people say it's one of the most beautiful cities, and for what it's worth, I love to use my smoker. My favorite rib rub, as you know, is Hungarian. But tell us about that experience. Is there a language barrier there? What kind of city is Budapest? Is it everything that people say it to be?
Yeah, probably everything and more. You really don't know until you step foot in there, and you can kind of get everything out of it that you want. There's a lot of history in Hungary, especially around, World War II times. So you can get that history side of it and really kind of take a deep dive into what Hungary is all about. And then there's also a pretty fun side for people around my age. And yeah, it's just a beautiful city. I mean, the culture is unbelievable. The language barrier is not a problem, just because it's a capital city, and they deal with so much tourism. Week in and week out, everyone's flying it seems like everyone's coming from the UK and flying in every weekend for Budapest. So, yeah, there's really no language barrier. You do your best to try to speak it, but it's a very difficult language to pick up. So that's coming along slowly, but yeah, it's just been unbelievable so far.
All right, Kurt, this is the tricky question. This is the one I've been asking all the coaches. So if you did your homework and watch tape of our show, you know what's coming here. High school hockey is moving in the right direction. We've got the MDHL, the success that Team Michigan has had going over to Minnesota. We're moving more and more players every year to juniors. But if there's one wish you could have or one thing that you could change or add into high school hockey that would make it better, make the product better, or maybe move more of our players, what would it be?
Well, I think Sean kind of touched on it earlier. I think some of the disjointedness in the fall, there's a lot of different things going on prior to the season. And I think finding ways to make a program in the, where everybody's more together, where all the top kids are together, the top kids aren't split up. Because when those top kids are together, they can elevate each other and don't have to go necessarily hunt around the country for that competition. There's enough good players here. We see it game in and game out during the regular season, and finding ways to get our top players together here, I think would be a good start. Being able to have our kids stay home, elevate, compete against each other in the fall, and just a little bit more cohesiveness as a high school hockey community, I think would be a good thing.
Well said. I certainly want to get the thoughts from Coach Hunter. Coach Hunter wanted us to ask you, Coach Kivisto, how different is high school hockey now compared to when you played? I talked about it earlier. I can't believe how much I've watched it jump with my own two eyes in the last dozen years. But how big of a jump is it for you from the time you were playing to where it is now here in 2024?
Well, I just think the talent level is incredibly different. I don't even know if I would make a team these days with guys like Jake out there. The talent level is incredible now compared to when I play. Like, we didn't work out. We didn't do any of that extra stuff that our kids are doing basically around the calendar year now. So I just think that the talent level is way more than it was back then. And even back then, though, there's a lot of good kids around the state that moved on to college hockey. So I just think overall the talent level continues to climb, and there's more good players playing. And then the stuff that you guys do and State Champs does, promoting the game, I think it only helps what we're doing as a sport. So that's obviously different. We didn't have that back then. I think we get a Hockey Weekly magazine once a week or every month or whatever it was. And that's how we knew in the old MLive forum. So it's one of those things where you know what's going on around the state with the high school hockey hub and video and your guys' shows that you do. It's just neat to see. You can see teams, you can see players, and you have a much better idea on players and teams around the state than we did when I played.
Let's give John Kidd 95% of the credit right there, okay?
96.
96. He does all the work. We're just a couple of idiots that chat.
Now, Jake, you had a very successful high school career. Like I said, 97 points in 55 games. But one thing that's been common with all the players that we've interviewed is that they all have a story, a favorite story that when they get together with the boys back in that you went to high school with, that they love to tell, whether it was a goal, an overtime goal, a win, or something that maybe happened. If you can share it with us, what is your favorite high school hockey memory and story?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some good ones, that's for sure. We had some good friends, and I mean, we really enjoyed. I think we were so successful because we enjoyed being around each other, especially off the ice. But yeah, we had some pretty significant wins that were definitely had some memories after. But I would say my senior year regional championship. I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, Kurt, but Will Jentz scoring a double overtime winning goal, and just
freshman Will Jentz.
What's that?
As a freshman.
Yeah, as a freshman. I mean, that was pretty cool because we were
the rink KV was packed.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty sweet game. And I remember, I mean, my first shift we went out there. Matty Cara got completely blown up. We didn't know if he would return, and then I hit somebody and dislocated my shoulder. So two guys on one of our top lines getting injured right away. We were like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. But, I mean, it just speaks to, the programs that Kurt and Paul were able to put together, the depth there. And, yeah, Will Jentz is a freshman going out, scoring a big goal for us to push along our state championship journey. And yeah, that was a really special one.
I was going to bring that up, and I'm not trying to make either one of you blush. And you brought this up earlier. You guys have the tendency, you come back, you get her going, maybe around the time of the Trenton Showcase, whatever the case may be. But you know what I remember about 2017 is there were a lot of people out there that didn't think that they were going to beat Northville. I watched those two teams play in Northville about a month earlier, and I was like, this Northville team's loaded. And B, I don't think anybody thought they were going to beat CC in that game. And Brighton came in and, in essence, flexed the muscle. And I think that has helped create that aura. That we say it all the time on the show. It's Brighton. Yep. Like, eventually things are going to be okay because it's Brighton. Jake, when you guys were playing, did you have that feeling? And does that kind of permeate around this program? Is you're Brighton and there's an expectation and you guys are going to find a way.
Yeah, definitely. You have a little chip on your shoulder, but I think more than anything, we had such a good group coming back from that year prior that we fell just short. And I mean, CC took it to us. I would say we had a chance for 8 minutes of that game, my junior year. And, we had a lot of guys coming back that very competitive guys, high level players. And we all took that pretty serious. So, Northville was definitely the first step, but we had a pretty clear vision right from the get-go that we were going to be playing CC again, and things were going to be different this time. And I can't speak for their locker room that championship game, but I know Kirk can speak for us. That, I mean, he said it right when he walked in. He didn't even have to give us a speech. He was like, "All right, you guys got it." Like, we were laser focused, chip on our shoulder. We knew we were going to take over this game, and we established dominance right from the start, and they gave us a good game. But I just remember that feeling was pretty incredible when you're in the driver's seat of a championship game and it feels like they're backpedaling and trying to find a way back into it. It was pretty nice where you're in the position now that you got a stranglehold on it, and as long as you play how you've been playing all year, you can get it done.
And the other thing to add to that team, like, we had a ton of talent. We had 5 D1 guys on that team. And then Matthew Carr, that Jake mentioned earlier, played in the North American League. So we had a ton of high-level players on that team, Jake being one of those guys that really made an impact for us that year. We had a clip I showed our guys recently, just our power play. There was 5 D1 guys on the ice when you include the goaltender and the North American League guy. Was our first power play unit. It was a special group of kids that were all competitive. They all cared about the game and they cared about each other. It was a really, really fun group to coach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we've been mentioning, Coach, you've had a lot of special players come through your program. You've had some strong special teams that come through there, and not every one of those players on that team, like Jake, come from AAA and hop onto the varsity team. You mentioned briefly some guys that have come through your JV program. How important is that JV program to you and your team's success every year?
Yeah, it's tremendously important because kids develop at different rates. There's kids that come in as freshmen and can make the jump. Just the team that we just referenced, like Sam Brennan came from AAA as a freshman. Timmy Urkela came from AA hockey. He made our team as a freshman. And then there's kids like Logan Neaton that was 5'4" goaltender, left AAA, played 2 years on our JV, hardly played on the JV as a freshman. Was kind of the JV starter his sophomore year, and by his junior year he'd grown. He was the varsity starter and best goaltender in the state by his senior year. So just kids develop at different rates, and the JV program it's a great way for kids to do that. They're practicing with the varsity team multiple times a week, and they're getting in those extra reps, and it's just a great spot to develop. And we use that program every year. Kids make the jump. Doesn't mean every kid does, but there's plenty of kids that have come through our program that make the jump to the varsity. Some it's 1 year, some it's 2, and some it's 3. So we have used it in different manners, but we've had a lot of successful players, including some of our best collegiate players, have come through our JV program.
Well, I'll leave it to Coach Hunter to sum things up for us. He said, Brighton always class acts. Paul, Kurt, the kids, kudos to them. I will second that all day. And Kurt Kivisto, you'll be happy to know Michigan State hockey Twitter had to let everybody know that you were indeed a member of that 2007 national championship team. So glad that they could tweet that out to tell everybody. Jake, it is a pleasure to chat with you. I am so glad that you have continued to play hockey and you're enjoying life right now. I mean, listen to you talk. It's awesome. I still can't believe it's been 7 years since you were a Brighton Bulldog, but hey, we're always going to root for you, and we really appreciate you taking the time here tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Jake.
And Coach Kivisto, thank you as always for everything that you do, and we'll keep working to getting everybody on the same page and most importantly in the same building. But as always, it's going to be a fun year. One of the things that you have to endure every year, and maybe this is part of the reason you guys are battle tested, is boy, it's always fun to compete in the KLAA, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great league, and the depth of the league, I think, is really good. I anticipate the league probably takes a step forward this year from a year ago. Couple teams return a lot of guys, and a couple teams are going to take some good steps forward this year, which is it's good for all of us to have those competitive games night in and night out. So I'm really excited for the KLAA competition this year, and the teams we're going to see. So I'm excited for the league, some of the new players coming in, some of the players around the league coming back, and expect some big things.
Anything else? Can we ask Coach Kivisto about the schedule this weekend? So, yeah, maybe do you want to ask him? You ask him.
Yeah, give out the schedule for the MDHL tryouts this weekend on Saturday to see if anybody out there might show up. I know I'm going to be there, and I'll probably be standing right next to you.
I believe things start at 8 o'clock on Saturday, and I think goes from 8 a.m. to about 8:30 p.m. So a long day of hockey out there in Brighton at the, whatever it's called now, the Big B Coffee Ice Cube Brighton, I think. All the locals still call it KV. Everybody knows what that is, but Big B's got the naming rights there now. So long day of hockey there, but it's fun to kick off the 2024-2025 hockey season on Saturday out there.
Always love going out there. We've been fortunate enough to go out there in August the last few years, and certainly that'll be the case as well. Coach, continued success to you. Thanks for everything you do. You've always been one of those guys, boy, if we have a question or we need to reach out to you, you get it back to us right away. Thanks for joining us here tonight, and we'll see you soon, huh?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate everything you do.
All right, Jake Crespi, Coach Kivisto, kindly joining us. I'm serious when I say this. Okay, now those guys are gone, so yeah. I love going out to Brighton. It's always fun when we get a chance, whether we're broadcasting a game out there or you and I, we have the tendency, hey, it's a Tuesday night. Why don't we roll to a local game? Always love going out to Brighton. Great people out there, great hockey, just a fun experience out at KV.
Yeah, and they talked about the community. It's a great community. It's one of the reasons why that association is so strong. And then when we go out there and we do the games, we either have half the crowd in our booth buying us coffee, and then we can't get out of there for an hour because they want to talk high school hockey. And it is a great conversation. It's not one-sided. It's a whole conversation.
And as Coach Hunter pointed out, they all know that I'm a big fan of the KV popcorn, and I find a way to get that big bag of popcorn and then some. But Mike, always a pleasure to be with you. Todd, behind the scenes, thank you. Most importantly, thank you for joining us. Special guest next week. We're going to go way up north to the UP. We're going to talk to our boys from Nagani and our friend Jimmy Young. That's our guest next week. But Mike, always a pleasure, my friend.
You too, Rose.
Mike Iavasile, I'm Sean Baligian. Until next week, thanks for joining us here on The Proven Path.
Wut The Puck, featuring Sean Baligian. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Matrazek. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song and incidental music by Elliot Middleton. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Wut The Puck on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Got something to say to Sean? Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.